Good evening, beautiful people. It's your boy Cory Mose in the building for another episode of Mose Knows. Thank you for joining me. No Dion Parker today. He's at work right now. Dude works hard just like me. That's why I respect him so much. But a lot of things happening around the sports world. A lot of things happening in life, to be honest. Trying to be more transparent on the pod just about what's going on in my life, what's going on behind the scenes of everything I do and everything you see I post. If you do check out my content, I hope you do. If you don't, that's a problem. I think you should definitely check out my content on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok. I'm everywhere, man. IG. If you've seen my content, I got a lot of Spurs content lately. I've been blessed enough to be able to get the green light to cover more Spurs stuff, so I'm definitely thankful about that. I'm actually watching the Austin FC game right now. They're playing the LAFC, or they're playing LAFC, I should say, in the first round of the playoffs. I was out there this week as well, just running all over the place for Austin sports, man. I'm just trying to do my best. Of course, San Antonio, so I guess you can say Central Texas sports. Of course, all the high school stuff. You can check all that stuff out on my Twitter page, like I said, TikTok page, Facebook page, wherever. Just find me and you'll find great content. Big week in college football, right? Crazy week in college football. Chaotic, I should say, when it comes to not only Texas, but just the whole landscape. Another big-time program that has an opening for their head coaching position. As I take my sip of wine tonight. It's been a crazy week, man, so I just need a glass of wine just to wind down a little bit. But yeah, clocked about 18 hours on Monday. Was that Sunday? Can't remember. Sunday I clocked like 12 or 13. Monday I clocked 18. Just been a wild, wild week. But thankful and grateful for what I do. But yeah, LSU, Brian Kelly getting fired. Of course, you already know about Penn State's opening. We already know about Billy getting fired, Billy Napier at Florida a couple weeks ago or last week. I can't keep up at this point. But the question now, like, who takes over at LSU? That job may be a top 3, top 4 job in America, I feel like, for college football. A lot of people may want to get that job. I saw Ed Orgeron trying to put his name in a hat again. It'll be interesting to see if they even think about hiring him again. Lane Kiffin's a name that's been swirling around, which if Lane gets LSU, that may be a problem. Because Lane's charisma, Lane's swagger right now, his authenticity is what this generation of student athletes, they admire. They like the transparency because it's you can't hide. You can't hide who you are nowadays because of social media. So I think the young men that are looking to join a program, they really do appreciate that authenticity. And Lane is one of those dudes where I see he is a leader of men, and this new generation of athletes will maybe buy into. So if Lane gets that LSU job, if he wants it, that's the biggest question. Would Lane want to leave Oxford to go to Baton Rouge? I know it's a lot more money in LSU. I know probably the fan base is better at LSU, and I know there's a lot more talent in Louisiana than there is in Mississippi, but he's built something at Ole Miss that they're still going to make it to the playoffs if the things keep going the way it is right now. You can still have a powerhouse program at Ole Miss. He's proven it right now. And I don't know. I think the Ole Miss fan base kind of gave back to him. But, yeah, that's just an interesting thought that I had this week. Will Ole Miss be looking for a coach if Lane leaves? Well, would Lane leave Ole Miss? That's the question. I don't know. If I was him, I would highly think about going to LSU, but I don't know if I would actually pull the trigger. But with all that being said, of course, you're here to hear about Texas versus Vanderbilt this week. Top 10 matchup for Texas. Vanderbilt, I believe, is number 10 in the country, number 9 at this point. You can't keep up. The AP poll, I mean, it's different each and every week. And to be honest, you just got to win out at this point if you're Texas. You got to beat Georgia. You got to beat A&M. You got to beat Vanderbilt, I feel like, to even have a chance. It looks like, sorry, my eyes just got distracted. I think LAFC just scored a goal. Yep. Brad Stuber just has a face that looks like a disappointment. So LAFC is up 1-0 over Austin FC right now in the first round of playoffs. But all right, let's get back on track, though. Later in the pod, you hear from 24/7 sports reporter Alaina Morris. She covers Vanderbilt for that platform. We're going to talk about, of course, we're going to go over enemy lines like we always do on the Mose Knows pod and talk about the matchup and hear from the opposing locker room, what they're talking about, what they're saying, and basically what's the vibe over there in Nashville. It's a lot of good vibes lately. College Game Day was just down there last weekend. Diego Pavia is getting Heisman talks, I guess. If you look at the numbers, I don't know. But, I mean, they're making a narrative, and that's all that trophy is at this point, is a narrative. And then, of course, they've been balling. I mean, they only have a loss to Alabama right now. which is a pretty good loss if you ask me. I think I had Alabama winning the SEC before the season started. So, yeah, this Vanderbilt team is legit. Cedric Alexander coming in back home. It's a homecoming for the running back. And from what we've heard from Clark Lee in his press conference, they really do take pride in guys coming home and maybe even giving them an extra touch here or there just because they are back home. So we'll see how involved Ced will be in the offense. But I also have ties to the other running back in that room, Kylan Young. Dating back to my days in Midland, Odessa, shout out to the 432. I started there in my career, spent 2.5 years in Odessa, and I remember my first year there, the first live shot I did was Midland Lee versus Permian. Crazy matchup. Of course, whole city shut down. It was my first real taste of West Texas. And I remember I had my live shot was horrible. Absolutely horrible. I was shaking. I was ashy. I remember I talked about how ashy I was on air because it was so cold outside in West Texas. The wind really does pick up out there since there's nothing really blocking anything. There's no trees or anything like that out there. And I was just shivering. I had this like thin jacket on that night. But the one thing I do remember from that matchup, this number 22 at running back, he was nearly unstoppable that night. And after the game, I got to get to know him. His name was McKylan, MK. And now he's a running back at Vanderbilt, backing up Cedric. But, I mean, MK, he's not just a backup. Like, he's had some big-time runs this season, including last week against Missouri. He had an 80-yard touchdown run to kind of get things going for Vanderbilt. Heck, like MK and I, we go back. That's my guy. Took him to church before. And McKylan, he has a crazy story. He took a gap year last year. He was at New Mexico State. He was a part of that transfer class that came over to Vanderbilt. And the thing about him, though, he took that year off last year to become a pastor. He went to school, Bible school, and literally became a pastor. And now he's back on the football field, baptizing boys on offense. So, yeah, his story is crazy. So I have a lot of respect for McKylan. I have a lot of respect for Cedric Alexander, that running back room at Vanderbilt. Like, for real, those are my dogs. So, of course, it's cool to see in this business guys move around and weeks like this happen, right? Where you cover these kids in high school, you cover these dudes in high school, and they grow up and they mature to become young men. And then now the team that you're covering, they played at school. And yeah, that's the lovely part about this business. So hopefully I get to chop it up with them after the game. But a lot of news coming out with Texas. I'm recording this on a Wednesday night. We talked to Coach Sarkisian on Monday and some of the players. But big news came out on Wednesday afternoon with Michael Taft and Arch Manning practicing. That was news I didn't expect to hear, to be honest. Michael Taft, of course, is coming off that thumb injury, and Arch Manning in concussion protocol, as we learned on Monday. But both of them practice. We were told that Arch was limited in practice. Of course, he's still in protocol, but the fact that he was at practice at all is a sign of improvement. I'm interested to see what Michael Taft does. I feel like you saw the absence of Michael Taft play a factor against Mississippi State. A lot of dudes running wide open against Mississippi State last Saturday. And I don't know how much of that is a factor of Michael Taft not being there, or is it more so the Bulldogs just playing well? I don't really know. Maybe it's a mixture of both. But I do think there were some stuff on the back end that may have been more shored up if Michael Taft was out there. So if he is out there on Saturday, it'll be a big, big addition to that secondary because, I mean, you can't deny the fact that Michael Taft is a huge piece. I mean, he's All-American. He's just got named to the semifinals for the Jim Thorpe Award. So having him back will be humongous, especially against a team that does a lot of, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Misdirection. There we go. They kind of scheme up things where it can trick your eyes a little bit when it comes to read option or quarterback wraps with Diego or stuff like that, where you can see things or you may see something and it's really not the case. And Taft watches a lot of film and he gets guys in the right position. So that'll be interesting to see if he does play on Saturday. But let's go back to the quarterback situation, though, right? I think that's the biggest question right now. Will Arch Manning play? No one really knows. But I will say this. I want to see Matthew Caldwell. I do. I think my colleague, Ann Parker Coleman, she said something like that on TikTok today, and I agree with her. I want to see Matty Ice or Matthew Caldwell. That's another nickname. That shout out my boy Nash. He mentioned that on Twitter. And Hero Canoe actually shouted him out and mentioned that as well during the Monday press conference that he saw that on Twitter. Thought that was a cool nickname for Caldwell. But I mean, we've seen a little bit of Matthew Caldwell, right? We've seen the Florida game. I believe he came in and during one of the non-conference games. I can't remember which one, but he looked well in that one as well during that drive. But that play against Florida comes in cold, throws a dime to Wingo, kind of gets him into a little bit of Florida's territory. And then, of course, we saw what happened last week. And I think the cool part about last week is that we learned after the game was that on that touchdown throw to Emmett Mosley, again, coming in cold, he sees the defense in a man coverage, checks at the line of scrimmage, audibles Emmett into a different route, a go ball, throws a perfect ball to the spot where only Emmett can get it. And what a beautiful catch by Emmett. You got to see why they got him out of Stanford. But we're getting to see why they chose Matthew out of the portal from Troy. This dude has a lot of experience. He's calm under pressure. Like I mentioned, those two situations where he come in during SEC games, it's high stakes. I mean, we're talking about the last drive against Florida. Arch just got sacked, by the way. You lost yardage, and now you're backed up, and he throws a strike to Wingo. Again, you're in overtime against Mississippi State. Low-key season on the line. Arch comes out, throws a dot to Emmett. So in these high-pressure, high-stakes situations, Matthew is showing up and showing out. And so that's why I'm interested to see him play. And after Monday, I became even more intrigued. After you listen to Coach Sarkisian, but more importantly, after you listen to the guys talk about QB2 and the way they describe Matthew, the way they uplift Caldwell, you could tell they believe in him. And the respect in that locker room for the backup quarterback is very high. And honestly, I'm gonna let y'all listen to these sound bites from some of the guys so y'all can get an understanding of what I mean when I say they respect this dude on a level that I believe in him just by the way that they speak about Matthew Caldwell. Here's what some of the players had to say about them on Monday.
Matthew is just a smart, mature. As we've seen, it's really hard to come in that game, last play of the game last week, and then Florida come in for one play and execute like he does. So it just shows you like how locked in he is, even though he's not the starter, but he is aware of the game plan and he's always dialed and just mature about his role on the team.
I want to say like he's a great leader. A lot of people follow him. He works his tail off. I mean, you saw it in the summer. We run a lot in the summer, and he was running. Now he's fat. He's a fast guy. He's a great guy. Hang out with him quite a bit. He's a fun guy to be around.
Matty Ice. I seen something on Twitter like they called him Caldwell or something like that. Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, he did his job. I didn't expect anything less from him, and you got to make your play when your number is called, and he definitely did that.
Whether it's the defensive players or offensive players or special teams players, he's always coming up to somebody, giving them a good word of advice. Like stay in the game, we still got it. He's dapping people up. He's hyped. He has juice, somewhere like me. He has a lot of juice, a lot of energy. So, yeah, that's definitely what it looked like.
The good thing for Matt, he's a very even-keeled guy. I thought he had a great practice today. I think, the players have a lot of confidence in him. I think it's his maturity, his approach. He's very engaged even when he doesn't play. If you ever watched our sidelines in game, 18 is probably the most engaged player on that sidelines. He's always picking guys up, offense, defense, special teams. And so he's got a really good relationship with the guys. And so I don't think it's like, well, who's this guy? He's in a lot of faces a lot of the times. And so it felt very comfortable, felt very normal today. I thought the bigger thing for today was that KJ Lacey got reps with the twos.
So you heard words like mature, funny. That's something that you don't really expect either. You get to see a little bit of the personality. But another thing that comes to mind when they were speaking is just how engaged he is. You heard Sark talk about that, about on the sidelines, he's engaged, probably the most engaged that any other player on that sideline is when it comes to the offense being on the field. And he comes off the field, he talks to Arch, he's looking at the iPad saying, hey, this is what I see. If I were to see this look, this is what I would have done. Those type of things where a veteran quarterback like Matthew has played such a factor, I feel like, not just for Arch, but just for the people around him and this team to build that confidence to the point that they're at now, where it's like, if it is Matthew Caldwell, they're fine. They're fine and they're confident. And this is why Sarkisian got this dude out the portal. If not, it would have been a young KJ Lacey, who's the backup right now. The backup to Caldwell, I should say, who got reps at practice on Monday. And if it wasn't KJ, it would have been a young Trey Owens. So you get a Caldwell like this. You get a dude like Caldwell. Caldwell like this is crazy. And so you get a dude like this out the portal because he provides stability. He provides a dude that has a lot of snaps underneath his belt in high pressure situations, maybe not in high level conference play like SEC, but there's something to be said about a quarterback who's seen a ton of different looks, different defenses, because he's been able to adapt. And since he's seen everything, he's able to audible like he did on Saturday and make the right read and make the right throw. You know, it reminds me of something that Jamar Chase said when Joe Flacco got traded to Cincinnati. That's exactly what he said. He said, Joe's seen so much ball. It's just different. And that's something that maybe Jake Browning didn't have in Cincinnati, that now you see in Joe Flacco. Why he's able to move this offense in Cincinnati so well is because he's seen so many defenses. And that's what I feel like Matthew Caldwell can provide for Texas. That he's seen so many defenses. Sorry, that's my look, always working, right? Email popping up. But that's why I'm intrigued about this matchup and if Caldwell plays. Now, if Arch plays, great. You know, I just hope he's healthy, right? Don't rush him out there because we all know with this offensive line, it struggles lately. You don't want him to get concussed again. And so make sure he's fully healthy. And honestly, with the bye week coming up, give Arch 2 weeks. If you trust Caldwell that much, right, do you let him rock out for this game against Vanderbilt? One thing Sarkisian said also that really stood out to me was the fact that on Caldwell's visit, he was honored to be there, humble to be walking around the 40. He didn't feel entitled for that visit. He didn't feel like he deserved to get a scholarship to the University of Texas just because he's played at these different universities and they're reaching out to him to come to campus. He didn't feel like he was, how can I put this? He didn't feel like he was owed anything. And when you have a QB like that, where he's humble enough to recognize this is my one opportunity on a big stage, so I just want to make the most of it, whether it's in the backup role or not, I think that said a lot about Matthew Caldwell's character. And I respect him for that. He came into a program where he knew Arch was the guy and he was just happy to be here. And if any opportunity came about, he's going to make the most of it. And this opportunity is now here. And so if he plays, I think he's going to ball out because he knows this may be his one shot. After his years at Jacksonville State, after his years at Gardner-Webb, after his years at Troy, this is what all those years were for, to get him prepared for this moment. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I want to see Caldwell play. I really do. But if not, I'm happy that Arch is back out there healthy. Either way, it's going to be a tough matchup. You saw Vanderbilt's defense last week against Missouri. They played awesome. They shut down Hardy, arguably the best running back in the league, in the nation, I should say. And with that being said, Texas offense hasn't looked great outside of maybe last week. But the only reason why they looked great last week was because they had to look great. They had to look solid after that game. I mean, after the first 2 or 3 quarters, because they were down by 17. You had to score. So I don't know what that is either. Like, I don't get why they have to have their backs against the wall for them to actually look competent on offense. But that's a whole nother topic of discussion. As for right now, though, I do think this offense did find something. With time and injuries playing a factor, you're starting to see this Texas offense kind of looked like what Sarkisian thought it was going to look like before the season started. Emmett Mosley having tough catches, blocking downfield. Go back and look at that. I want to mention this. My nose is bothering me right now. My goodness. Things are allergies. But go back and watch that play. First play of the game, Ryan Wingo. Little screen pass. Takes it 60 yards. But 30 yards down the field, you'll see Emmett Mosley blocking his butt off. 30 yards down the field. I swear, go back and watch that play. 30 yards down the field, you see Emmett Mosley blocking. And that's something that they mentioned. Parker Livingston mentioned it. Ryan Wingo mentioned it before Emmett played his first game against Florida. They were happy to have Emmett back on the field the biggest reason was because of his blocking. And you got a little taste of it against Mississippi State. And Sarkisian said on Monday, that's just the beginning. That's just a start. He thinks Emmett is an even better blocker than what he showed on tape on Saturday. So excited to see how that develops. You see CJ and Quintravion Wisner coming back on the field together. They haven't played together since Ohio State. And even last week against Mississippi State, CJ wasn't fully back. You could tell he didn't get a lot of those snaps that he maybe will get this weekend. And so, these guys haven't had time to really gel on the field together. But now you're starting to see it. Starting to see the whole wide receiving core. Parker Livingston, Emmett Mosley, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore Jr. Those four together are elite. I mean, that's one of the toughest wide receiver rooms in the country, in my opinion. Outside of maybe Ohio State, that's up there. That's at least top 5 in the country with guys that can just go, that can make tough contested catches as well. Ryan Wingo is that one outlier, though. He needs to work on those drops. Like, I'm not going to just sit here and act like everything's peaches and cream. Like, you can't drop the ball if you're going to be the wide receiver 1 on this roster. And if you're supposed to be the guy, like everyone expected him to be, which he's been showing flashes, like shout out Wingo, like that 60-yard run that he took. I mean, that was speed and power. It was amazing to see, and balance to stay upright. But then you have the drops. So you don't want that to become an issue as time goes on, because those drops could play a big factor in big time games like this weekend. So you want to see him shore those things up. I'm sure he's working on it. But then you have that backfield tandem of CJ and Quintravion, and you have kind of like the Sonic and Knuckles type factor. You know, you have the power back and the speed back. And then CJ is so important because of his pass blocking potential. I mean, there's a reason why, as a true freshman, he started over a dude in Jonathan Brooks who would have won the Doak Walker Award if he didn't get hurt. I will stand by that. I will go to my grave saying that. Jonathan Brooks would have won the Doak Walker if he didn't get hurt. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. His numbers back it up. But CJ Baxter was starting over him. Let's not forget. And I think that's important to note, because the reason why he was starting over him was because CJ was the best running back in pass pro. That's what Coach Sark told us. He wants his running back to be able to block. And I think CJ coming back adds another element to helping Arch stay upright. And that's huge right now, because that O-line, like we mentioned, has its struggles. But as for right now, though, this offense looks good. If you take that last fourth quarter against Mississippi State, the offense looks good. And we'll see if that offense continues to roll back at home. It's been 42 days. 42 days since Texas has been in DKR. And this time, they're going to be welcomed with the top 10 opponent in Vanderbilt. And to talk about that matchup, let's go to my Over Enemy Lines interview with Alaina. Can't wait for y'all to hear what we talked about. A lot of great things with Diego Pavia. We talked a little bit about what Clark Lee said in their press conference. She was in that room. You know, I love talking to people that are in the rooms during these press conferences, because you get so much when you're in these rooms. That's why I do it. You get to understand what the coach is saying and the mannerisms that the coaches have. But then also we talked about Diego Pavia and, of course, that Heisman talk. So hope y'all enjoyed this interview. And we actually talked earlier in the day. So if you see a lot of sunlight, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's why. Talked to her earlier in the day. So not at night. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this interview. All right, beautiful people. We're now going over enemy lines where we talk to someone who covers the team that Texas is playing that week. And I'm joined by a friend of mine, Alaina Morris. Now she writes for the 24/7 Sports for Vanderbilt. And so, Alaina, just first and foremost, how are you doing today? I know you got a busy week this week and big time matchup this week for the Commodores.
Yeah, I'm great. Looking forward to this weekend. I think it'll be a great game and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here just to talk about, of course, what's going on in Vandy. Seems like y'all are popping right now. Just recently saw Jared Curtis, maybe little verbal commit, number one recruit, number one quarterback in the country in 2026. People are suspecting that he's going to flip from Georgia to Vandy. What are the vibes right now in Nashville? Because it seems like something like that, and of course, with the way the football team is going, it's immaculate out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to see. Obviously, some Jared Curtis rumors are floating out there a little bit, but college game day coming to Nashville last weekend. I don't think I've ever seen Nashville so busy, so excited, and just, seeing the entire community get up and go to college game day. I mean, on social media, there were students camping out from the day before all the way until 6 o'clock in the morning when they were letting students in the pit. So, I mean, everyone was
They
just
don't got class. They don't got class or what?
I mean, normally Vanderbilt students go to class, but I think they were making an exception. But yeah, no, I mean, just the vibe around it all, and of course, a big one over Missouri. It came down to the wire there, so just the vibes are really high here, and I think everyone's just excited for what Clark Lee's been able to do.
Yeah, can I ask you a question real quick with that Hail Mary with Missouri? What was going on through your mind? What was the vibes like in the press box?
I mean, obviously it was tough to see Bo Prabula go down. You never want to see anyone get hurt like that. So you're not entirely, sure what to expect out of a backup there. But, there were chances the defense had to end it on that last drive. And then the Hail Mary went up and it happened to fall just short. I know probably too many sighs of relief in the stadium there for Vanderbilt fans. I've seen social media posts where they were all, glad to finally be on the other side of things like that. But definitely a wild ending. Just a great game overall. Very, very defensive heavy though.
Okay, it's maybe a defensive game coming up on Saturday. It was kind of like that last year when Texas went up to Nashville. And so, can I just talk to you real quick just about the press conference with Clark Lee? I know that's something I really want to discuss. Anybody I bring on this podcast, y'all are in that press conference room. Y'all are listening to the answers. So, was there anything in particular that stood out to you with the way his mannerisms were, or maybe an answer that he had that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so I was there yesterday when Clark talked to us just ahead of this week, and I think it's about the preparation, with Arch Manning's status being kind of questionable. It seems like they're really approaching, not who's gonna be throwing the ball, but more, the perimeter. He talked about Texas having so many weapons, so much speed, and so both quarterbacks, whoever ends up playing this game, they're gonna be more than capable of moving the ball around, but I think their main focus on the defensive side of things is just guarding that perimeter, guarding the edges, and not letting Texas playmakers get out into space.
Yeah, Arch did practice today. He's still in protocol though, and so I know that must be tough just trying to prepare for two different quarterbacks. Caldwell has the experience, but he doesn't have the legs as Arch has. But as I saw against Mississippi State, he has that kind of X factor whenever he comes to the game, and he's able to handle his offense. So I think Texas fans, they're also interested in if Matthew Caldwell does play, what does he look like? Because every time he stepped on the field, he looks pretty decent. So I know that's something that Vanderbilt is kind of preparing for. And I know they're also preparing for this defensive line and the front seven for Texas and the running game. Cedric Alexander coming back to Austin. Did he talk about that at all? Were you able to talk to him this week at all?
Yeah, yesterday he mentioned that both things actually, just how good Texas's run defense is and how they're really going to have to make it a point of emphasis to attack any sort of space that they give them. But you mentioned Cedric Alexander, a guy, this is a homecoming game for him. And so Clark talked about, when we go and play in these hometowns of some of our players, they take a lot of pride in that and they want to make sure that they're playing to the best of their ability for Cedric or anybody else who's going to play it for their home, and also just, playing for their family as well. It's an important game for him. And so whether that's Cedric, coming back to Texas or any of their other players going back to their hometown, they take a lot of pride in representing, Vanderbilt football, and they just want to put their best, I guess, but put their best foot forward and, show out for their family and their friends in their hometown.
Yeah, I got a couple ties to that Vanderbilt running back room, actually. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but McKylan Young, I covered him in high school back at Midland Lee, or Midland Legacy now. And so we have a connection there. Of course, Cedric from Austin, I covered him when he was in high school. But I'm interested to go back to MK. What has he brought to that running back room? I know he had a big touchdown run last week, and he's kind of been a good complement to Seti that a lot of people don't really notice on a national level.
Yeah, I was, just thinking about MK Young. That run last week, it was a 3-3 game. Both offenses were searching for answers, and MK broke off an 80-yard touchdown. And, that people were saying that might have been the loudest moment they'd heard at the bank. And so I think that you're right. I think a lot of people are overlooking what MK Young has done for Vanderbilt. Clark Lee talked about how they're a great 1-2 punch, but it's where he didn't play last year. He took that gap and was going through all of his personal things, going to school and taking classes and wanting to become a pastor. So he just kind of had his own different adventure there and then was able to step into this role this year. And Diego Pavia raved about him before the season started. And I think fans are finally, getting to see what he's capable of, and I feel like the longer the year has gone on, he's really showcased that. So definitely a great 1-2 punch in the backfield.
Yeah, I've been excited to see both those guys do their thing over there at Vanderbilt, but I know Texas fans aren't hoping that they do that same here in DKR on Saturday. What kind of is the sentiment now with the team, of course, being underdogs, Vanderbilt that is, even though they're ranked higher in the polls? Does that mean anything to them? I know this team sometimes uses a little motivation here and there. I don't know if that's something that they're looking into.
It's actually funny. Someone asked Clark about that yesterday in the press conference, and he said that was the first time he had heard of the fact that they weren't favored. Not as oh, I'm ignoring it or I think we should be kind of thing, but it's more so that's just how Clark Lee operates. Like, he's the kind of guy, he does not listen to outside noise. He is focused on one thing, and that's Vanderbilt football. And so he didn't realize the spread or the line yesterday and just what the national media is kind of making of this game. And so I think that kind of says a lot about how he runs this program, is just not to focus on, what anybody else is saying, just to go and do their own thing.
Yeah, I think there's one thing I saw online with Clark. He mentioned something about November being something that he wanted to work on this past summer. I think Commodores, they didn't play well in November last year, and to the rest of the season, they kind of fell off a little bit. And so what did you see from that team last year that maybe was the reasoning behind the fall off? And how do you think they've been able to prepare for this upcoming November schedule, which is a lot of tough teams, by the way? How are they going to be able to sustain what they built so far this season?
I mean, the SEC is just obviously a very tough conference. And so, the year before last, they went 2-10 and they didn't have Diego Pavia. And then last year, Pavia and a lot of those guys from New Mexico State come in and they're starting to get the ball rolling a little bit. But it was the first time, really going through that gauntlet of the entire SEC and all of those games. And so it kind of felt like maybe they run out of gas a little bit at the end. And obviously, very tough schedule. They had LSU, Tennessee in November. I mean, those are two great teams. And so I think that, with it being a first time thing, that's just a tough thing to navigate. And so I think this year they know how to prepare. And I mean, Clark said he's been thinking about it since January. So he wants to make sure that, as they're trying to get to the top, that they're not stuck. And so I think that you're kind of seeing that. I mean, with where they're at right now, they're 7-1 and they're trying to, surpass 9 wins, which is the most in program history. And, they're on their way to doing that. But like you said, they got to get through November. So I think that it's just having that experience. Diego Pavia has gone through this before, and he's brought back weapons who have gone through this before, and just what they're doing, they've been through it. And so I think that that's definitely a big factor this year.
Okay, you brought up Pavia. I want to talk to you about him. Everyone looks at the outside, right? From the outside, he's a very confident dude. He has a lot of swagger to him, jokes around a lot, loves the Lord, from what I can tell. And so what is something that maybe people who aren't in Nashville and covering the Commodores, maybe what they don't know about Pavia that you're able to see firsthand since you're there?
I just think it's how intentional he is. A lot of people see him and his confidence, and, whether you like it or you don't, that's okay. Everyone's, able to take that as they will, but it's the way that he interacts with his teammates. I mean, he has built a relationship with every single one of them. The way that he interacts, you can tell that he truly cares. It's not like, all right, I'm just going to spend time with the offense. Like, he is best friends with some of the players on the defense. I mean, he just makes so much of an effort to get to know everybody on the team and have those intentional relationships. And I feel like people just don't, necessarily see that about them. And that's tough to do when you're a quarterback and you're a leader. It's hard to get to know all of your guys, but I think that's something that Diego does really well.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see him crack jokes, but you can also tell, I feel like the team loves him. just whenever he does interviews on the field after the games, they're always behind him or supporting him. And so it's been cool to see that as well. Am I wrong in that way, or do I see that pretty well?
No, you're right. It feels like, just as much as he tries to have those relationships, it's, it's reciprocated. I mean, they love him and they post about him. They enjoy being with them. They talk about how they spend time together. I know before the season started, they'd mentioned that I think it was once a week, a different teammate every week would kind of come up with like a team activity per se. And so just kind of building those relationships and bonds, it feels like, it's definitely a two-way street there. Diego loves his teammates, and I feel like they also love him, and just they love how he leads the team. I feel like if you go and watch any of the videos they put out before the game, he's in the middle of the huddle with the entire team, with the defense, the offense, and he's just trying to fire his guys up.
What's your thoughts on his Heisman talk?
I mean, it's interesting because I know people are looking at statistics, and there's obviously a lot of great players out there. I mean, Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza are two that immediately come to mind for me, but they're established programs. I know Indiana's also kind of in that rebuilding, but they did it really quickly under Kirk Cignetti, and Alabama is Alabama. They've done what they've done for a long time, but I think it's definitely warranted. Vanderbilt, like I mentioned, was 2-10 2 years ago, and here they are in talks for a college football playoff. And so just the fact that he was able to help really turn this team around, I think it's definitely, justified that he should be in that conversation.
Yeah, I thought at the podium he handled it pretty well. Were you in that room that day?
I was not that day, but I do know what you're talking about. And it's also kind of like, you got to have that kind of confidence of I should be there. I should, you know, be in these conversations, I feel like, because, you want that from your leader. I feel like that kind of also drives confidence into everybody else on the team, hearing him say something like that.
You talk about confidence. One of the last questions for you. Why do you feel like this Commodore team should be confident coming into Austin and can knock off Texas?
I mean, they've dealt with a tough environment, at Alabama, and they didn't come out on the right side of that game. But I know, Texas is obviously a very hard place to play in, and Texas also has a really good defense. And you saw what they were able to do last weekend against Missouri, who is also got a great defense led by Zion Young, one of the best players in the country. And they were able to hold, Mizzou to 10 points. And so I think if Vanderbilt's defense can play to the level or above what Texas can do, they're definitely giving themselves a good chance to, obviously walk away with the win. But it's not going to be easy for sure. Texas is a very good team. And, like I think the quarterback play is just the big question right now on offense for you guys. But I mean, I think that really going to come down to the defense. If I had to, make a guess here, it's probably what it's going to be. Something similar to last week for Vanderbilt.
Got you. Last one for you. We talked about a lot of dudes on the roster in this conversation. Who's somebody that we didn't mention that you feel like needs to be talked about?
I guess with saying the defense, two that come to mind for me, Brandon Fontenette in the backfield. I mean, teams have been scheming away from him. He is explosive. He hits hard. He's got great hands, for being a DB. And then the other one, Corday Sidnor for me, defensive end, just super explosive, super disruptive. I feel like those are two guys that really have led this Vanderbilt defense this year.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you, Alaina, for your time. I don't always do this. You can say no if you don't want to. Any score predictions?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Yeah, maybe I'll see if Arch is playing or not.
Oh yeah. Hey, smart answer. Smart answer right there. Where can people find your work?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alaina M Morris, and then all of articles, different videos on YouTube are under Vandy 24/7.
Okay, Alaina, thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to see how this all boils down on Saturday. Commodores versus the Longhorns should be a good one.
Yeah, should be for sure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, I want to thank Alaina again for her time. She did not have to do that. She's a busy woman. Got a lot of things going on in Vanderbilt right now. Of course, basketball season just tipped off as well, so she was covering them today. So thank you again, Alaina, for hopping on. A lot of great things that she said there. Of course, she mentioned SETI, she mentioned MK. But that defense, like she mentioned, has been looking really good lately. Since that Alabama game, they've been able to be stout. They held Missouri to not less than their season average. And yeah, they look legit. So if Texas is going to win this game, I just expect another. I keep calling them slobber knockers. I know it's not like It's just one of my terms. It's one of those, those words that maybe y'all use in your vocabulary that probably no one else uses. That's how I am with that. Slobber knocker is one of those words for me. Like I, I use that like regularly, and I realize a lot of people don't. So yeah, that's just one of my words. But I do think this game is gonna be. It's gonna be one of those games. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be defense heavy, especially if Caldwell plays. I know that Texas, they have the whole playbook open for him, but they probably want to be conservative a little bit, just to make sure he doesn't turn the ball over, trust the defense, and that's something that Texas' identity has turned into. It's play great defense, win the field position battles, punt the ball, get great punt returns by Ryan Niblett. I mean, that's simply what it's been. And then you hope that the offense doesn't turn the ball over. And that's equated to wins. Now, they've been stressful, heart aching, a lot of heart palpitations has been occurring during these wins, but wins are wins. And so maybe that's something we'll see again on Saturday afternoon at 11 o'clock. So if you are going to the game, make sure you don't go too crazy on Friday night during Halloween. If you are celebrating Halloween, please be safe. I wasn't a big Halloween guy growing up, to be honest. A little transparency here. My parents, they didn't really celebrate it. We come from a Christian household. So we used to, crazy enough, my family, we used to go to Walmart, buy a bunch of candy, come back to the crib. My dad will write a note on our door saying, like, please do not knock. We don't have candy. And then we would turn off all the lights in our house and watch a movie together. Whether it's a scary movie, a comedy movie. Usually it'd be like a comedy, though. We'll go to Blockbuster back in the day and watch a movie together as a family, eat some candy together as a family, and then I would low key go upstairs to my room, and after the movie was over, peek outside my window and look at all the kids walking around our neighborhood. I lived in a little cul-de-sac, so I would see everybody in the cul-de-sac walking around, getting candy, going door to door. Low key was a little jealous of the kids back then, but it's whatever, Can't go back in time and change it. So you can only appreciate the family time we got to get. So if you are celebrating Halloween, please be safe. Please check the candy. There's some sickos out there. But big game this weekend. Texas and Vanderbilt. Can't wait to see what goes down there. If Texas wants to have a playoff berth with, by the way, Texas is not in the college football playoff bracket right now. They're not even in the first one or second out right now. I believe Texas Tech has that second spot out, and then Notre Dame has that first team out spot. So if Texas wants to make the playoff, I think they have to win out, to be honest, or they may have to just lose one of these last 4 games, and they're all tough. I mean, at home against Vandy, got a bye, then you got at Georgia, then you got home against Arkansas, who has Taylor Green, who is a dynamic quarterback. They took it to the wire with A&M, and then speaking of A&M, you got the finale against them at home. So that's going to be interesting. Last little four game stretch for Texas. Every game is important if they want to make the postseason. But for right now, you got to look one game ahead, and that next game is against the Commodores. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. Thank y'all for tuning in for this episode, though. Listen to Mose Knows. I really appreciate you taking the time. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Please share any of the sound bites. Please share anything that you may have liked on your social media pages. My social media page on Twitter is Cory_Mose. You can find me anywhere with that. I have a unique last name, thank God. So no one else has it. It's not Moses, it's just Mose. So that's a blessing. But yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. And we'll see what happens on Saturday.